This is how I study. This is part of the urinary physiology. We have reabsorption now, tubular reabsorption. Up to 99% of filtration are reabsorbed. However, reabsorption is a selective process. All organic nutrients are reabsorbed. Water and ion reabsorption are hormonally regulated. Okay, so as you can see in the chart here, let me zoom in. Okay, we have the filtrate and tubule lumen, H2O and solutes, and then tubule cell, and then interstitial fluid, and then the peritubular capillary. Now remember the peritubular capillary here, it is porous and it has low pressure. Okay, so reabsorption occur here because it is quite porous. As you can see, we have H2O here. The blue lines here indicate passive transport. The red line of the solutes right here indicate the active transport. Okay? Alright, so we have the reabsorptive capabilities of renal tubules and collecting ducts. PCT, or the proximal convoluted tubule, site of most reabsorption happens here, the PCT. 65% of sodium and water are reabsorbed, and all nutrients like glucose, amino acids, 100% of those are also reabsorbed. Ions like potassium and calcium are reabsorbed. All small proteins that may have been filtered are reabsorbed. Okay, so the central role of sodium in reabsorption. Sodium is reabsorbed by primary active means. Glucose and amino acids follow via secondary active transport. H2O follows by osmosis. Remember, as sodium is reabsorbed, what follows? Sodium. Water does. Just like aldosterone does that, and ADH does that. Potassium and other ions followed by solvent drag. Okay, role of sodium in reabsorption. We have here a diagram for us, and as you can see, this is the proximal convoluted tubule right here, an enlargement here. In red, we have the primary active transport. In the red dotted line, we have the secondary active transport. Blue one is passive transport, basically diffusion. And of course, these big bulbs right here are the transport protein, and then these are the ion channels, or aquaporin. Alright, and again, like I said over here, that the peritubular capillary is low pressure and it's very well at absorbing. And we have here the famous sodium-potassium pump. 3 sodium goes in, while 2 potassium goes back out of the interstitial fluid here. This is the nucleus and the tubule cell down here. Right here, sodium comes over here. Again, this is the primary active transport, right? You need ATP for the transport of sodium across here, and then potassium going in. And then over here, this is the secondary active transport, because we use ATP over here, we do not need ATP over here. Okay, down here, H2O just goes right through with the ion channel, or the aquaporin. And of course, we have lipid-soluble substances and other ions like calcium chloride, and potassium, and other ions goes through. Okay, reabsorptive capabilities of renal tubules and collecting ducts. Loop of Henle. The descending limb of the loop of Henle is 25% of filtered H2O. Okay, so it only reabsorbed H2O. The ascending limb is 25% of filtered solutes. Okay, sodium, potassium, calcium there. Loop diuretics block reabsorption in this segment, leading to increased urinary output, like Lasix here. Now let me draw you a diagram. Okay, so right here, right, this is the PCT right here, okay, and the descending limb right here. So PCT, basically, once it leaves the glomerulus up here, okay, water is reabsorbed 65% of the time right here, okay, and then once it reaches the descending limb of the loop of Henle right here, 25% is also reabsorbed right here. Okay, now if you take 65 plus 25, that equals 90, so 90% of H2O is reabsorbed right away no matter what. Okay, now we get 10% of H2O down here. Okay, and again, this is like the bottom of the loop of Henle when it's about to ascend again. Now, this is the ascending loop of Henle right here, and it goes to the distal convoluted tubules, and then of course the collecting duct for urine. Oh, and again, once down here, the 10% of H2O, this is where all the hormone stuff happens, like aldosterone, okay? The last 10% depends on hormones, okay? Like ADH and aldosterone for H2O, okay? So like I said earlier, the DCT and collecting duct reabsorption is hormonally regulated, like calcium, PTH, water, ADH, and sodium, aldosterone. Water follows sodium. Okay, so we have the reabsorptive capabilities of renal tubules and collecting ducts again. The mechanism of aldosterone targets principal cells in distal. DCT promotes reabsorption of sodium. And if sodium is reabsorbed, remember potassium is released, the sodium-potassium pump. And here's a quick little diagram of it. Let me zoom up here and focus it for you. There we go. Okay. Now we have increased potassium or decreased sodium here, concentration in blood plasma. Okay, now that's in the renin-angiotensin mechanism, of course. That stimulates the adrenal cortex to release aldosterone, right? Aldosterone targets the kidney tubules, and the effects are increase sodium for reabsorbing and increase potassium secretion. That restores homeostatic plasma levels of sodium and potassium. Alright, now that sends a negative feedback to inhibit the adrenal cortex to stop releasing aldosterone.